Hey guys, welcome to another Draw Me Thursday. Today we're going to be drawing a harvest moon in Procreate, or you can use regular paper. I leave it up to you. Now I'm going to show you a quick time lapse of what we're going to do, and I'll kind of walk through it. Here we go. So I usually start out by laying out all of the items. I do quick sketches and then some more defined sketches, just to see where I was going to lay out my flowers and my little wisps. Then I start adding color as usual. This is not going to be a line drawing. I'm just using the lines for my guide, and as you can see, I go back and forth in making the lines come and go so I can see kind of what's going on. So I keep adding some more color to the flowers, and then these flowers were giving me such trouble, so I ended up scrapping them and just doing totally different flowers. They're gonna disappear pretty soon. I'm like, forget it, don't like those flowers, gonna make these instead. And then these were working a little better, so I went with that. Then I added some leaves and some purple flowers and pink flowers and then little bubble flowers. And then after that I started adding the wisps with the leaves and I guess some hay. I also, as you can see, I also experimented with a blue moon, but I didn't really like it, so I kept it nice golden moon. Then I didn't like how the flowers were arranged, so I kind of turned it around. And that about sums up the drawing. So let's get started. As mentioned before, I'm doing everything in Procreate, so if I start talking Procreate language, bear with me. I'm just showing you guys the different layers that I was using. I had 3 layers, and I started with a very quick sketch layer, then I went to a detailed layer, followed by the color. So I started out drawing a circle for my moon. It doesn't have to be perfect, because this is the kind of the scribble layer, if you will. And now I'm showing how to make my moon by using 2 circles and then kind of zeroing out one side. This moon came out really wonky, so I kind of messed around with it. On a side note, I should mention that I did have audio in this video, but then when I recorded it, I realized after that I didn't have audio. So here I am putting some audio in after the fact. So bear with me as we go through this. So here we are, stretching the moon, figuring out a good shape for it, and I ended up using some of the effects to smush it together. Now I'm laying out where the flowers are going to go, and I kept it a little simpler than the last version. So I'm going to put pumpkin and then some smaller flowers, kind of similar to the ones that I used before when I finally figured out what flower I was going to use. Then I have some wisps, or whatever you want to call them, vines, on the top, and then I added some as well on the bottom. And then in between you're going to add some little details. I don't think I ended up using those little sticks, but who knows? Things change all the time. So now that I have that, I lowered the opacity in my sketch layer and I'm going to the detailed layer where I'm going to actually start drawing what will be the sketch before I ink. So I'm going to start out with a pumpkin. Pumpkin, where are you, pumpkin? There, oh, never mind. I'm going to start out with the moon. So I'm tracing this a little nicer than I did the first time. And adding in the other side of the moon. I think I still wasn't happy with how it looked. I believe I move it again just a smidge. Nope, I don't. We're going to zoom in to the pumpkin. I believe I added the stem first because I wanted to see where it was going to be on the pumpkin, and then I added my ridges. You can add whatever kind of pumpkin you want. It could be totally circular. It could have little bumps, however you want. I seem to like the little bumps most. I didn't add too much detail here either because, again, I was going to be coloring it in and taking the lines out. So these were more for guides as far as shading. Then I took out some of the lines so that they weren't distracting me, since the moon is not going to go through the pumpkin. Not today, anyway. Then I decided that I was going to make it a jack-o'-lantern with a cute little face. Just gonna go with it. And... oop, fix that, cat. Fix that! There we go. Phew! Crisis averted. Maybe. Alright, now that I'm a perfectionist has shown, I continue on with a little pumpkin. And you'll see that I'll shift the canvas around a lot. I just like moving the canvas around so it feels more comfortable with my hand. Here I'm doing some squiggly flowers, just like I did in the last version, except you didn't really see me doing this, since I skipped that part and I had different flowers in mind. So this is a quick way for me to do the squiggly flowers. You can do them, again, however you want. Add whatever flowers you want. Put daisies, put roses. Doesn't matter. Just add some flowers. Nice big one there. I like how fluid these lines are. Somewhat. Then I get to the bottom ones and it's like, ah, train wreck. I know I add some on the bottom too. Oh, I'm adding some stems because they were just floating. Nobody wants floating flowers. Looks like I added the vine leaves first. Normally I would probably put all the large flowers in before I keep adding other items in. So keep that in mind when you do your drawing. I would say ignore what I did and put in all one type of flower first and then move on to your next item. But you know what? We'll just go with it as usual. I'm adding the tops here. I hadn't decided yet if I wanted to do like the wheat stems or like the little vines quite yet. Here I go. I believe I'm going to be twisting the canvas again soon because it was really awkward drawing upside down. There we go. This one came out really weird. I don't know what went on there. It didn't matter because it's going to be painted anyway. So that's mostly just for, the lines are just, again, just for my reference. And here I go, adding some more of the vine leaves. So I like to go back and forth to make sure that my composition looks balanced before I add in any more details. Still see me kind of zoom in and zoom out just to make sure everything looks nice. Alright, here I'm adding in those little bubble flowers, and they're really cool because they're just basically dots, little circles, and you'll see that I later on add them in even where they're not really sketched in. I just was feeling good about where they were going to go, so I added them in wherever I felt like it. Alright, here we go. We hid the first layer that had the rough sketch, so now I am probably going to start adding color. Looks like the color wheel has come out. Changing my brush because I wanted to do watercolor. So I'm using my favorite watercolor brushes. I'll have to get the name of them. They're really, really nice. Make sure you're on the right layer, and of course, as usual, moving your coloring layer below your lines so that they are under and the lines are over. Here I was having a rough time with the color size, but it all worked out because I ended up coloring in everything as I needed to, and again I stuck with the golden yellow. This one looks more like a butter, and I wasn't too worried about the color going over the flowers or over the edges because that's something that you can quickly fix in on the computer. or whatever. If you're using a digital art, it's easy to take out. Just filling in the rest of the moon here. Eventually, when you go to a top layer over the moon, you can make sure that the colors don't show through. So I wasn't too concerned about it. Or erase them, of course. And I'm just erasing some of the fine details that a little too much color went past the lines. And I'll go back and forth again. I'll take the lines off and I'll put them back on just to kind of see where my color was going, because I noticed that it looked like it was way too sketched. So I added a little bit more of the yellow so it didn't look quite like I had forgotten to color there. And then eventually I turned the opacity a little lower than I had before, so I could see through the lines, and since the lines weren't going to be on there. All right, putting that sketch layer back on so we can continue. I made another layer, and this time we're going to color in the jack-o'-lantern. I chose a fun orange. Don't mind the ambulance in the background, everybody's okay. And again, just like I said before, I wasn't worried about coloring in the jack-o'-lantern details, because those are going to be all in black anyway. I do a lot of duplicating layers and then merging them together to darken quickly so I don't have to go over it again. So you'll see me double things and then they'll disappear, which is when I pinch both layers together so that they merge. And then I do the stem here, coloring in the stem. You can easily do this as well on paper. You don't need a computer or a tablet. It's a lot more fun sometimes to use a tablet because it's so easy to undo and like experiment with different colors and whatnot. But you can definitely do this without having to purchase an iPad or anything like that. Regular paper always works. Changing colors, going to the details of the jack-o'-lantern. So basically I just keep coloring in all these little details. You'll see that I am gonna also turn on and off the layers so I can make sure that the jack-o'-lantern makes sense when I take the lines off, just like I did with the moon. So you probably don't want to watch me color in too long, so I'm going to speed it up here, and then when something interesting happens again, I will come back. But basically I'm adding blocks of color to all of the items, and then later on I add some shading. Okay, so here I am adding some shading to all of the artwork, and you'll notice that if you're working with Procreate, you make a layer on top and use a clipping mask. That way that you can shade and not have to worry about the color going outside of the block of color that is under it, which is so convenient. Can't do that in real life unless you're using masking fluid. That would take forever to dry. And then, as you can see, again, added another layer on top. Oh, had to make sure I was still recording. So anyway, I added a layer on top and then used a clipping mask. And I'll zoom in a little bit to see the pumpkin, and I add some details to Mr. Pumpkin Jack-o'-lantern. And I'll use different brushes and different textures just to give more shadow to things and just so it doesn't look so flat. So again, let's zoom on through and you can watch me put some shadows in. So I've added all my detail and I have to do one final thing. Add the signature, or my mom would be very upset with me. So don't forget to add your signature to your creation. Anyway, thanks for watching this video and I can't wait to show you next week our next moon themed drawing. Thanks for joining me.